The justice that didn't need fear. In the Ardent Sector, justice was not a conversation. It was a function. The Empire's legal core ran on one principle. Order is maintained through consequence. Every violation had a predefined punishment. Every deviation had a correction path. And every correction ended the same way. Compliance through fear. Until Kael arrived. 1. The failed district. District 9 was not officially labeled broken. But everyone avoided it anyway. It had become a place where laws still existed, but no longer meant anything. Crime wasn't rising. It was evolving, predicting enforcement patterns, staying one step ahead of punishment cycles. The system called it adaptive misconduct. The people called it survival. And Kael was sent there not as a hero, but as a test. 2. The human who didn't punish first. Kael's assignment was simple. Restore compliance. Reinforce authority. Stabilize behavior. Standard doctrine suggested immediate enforcement escalation. Stronger surveillance. Faster punishment cycles. Visible consequences. But Kael did something unexpected. He didn't increase punishment. He removed uncertainty. He walked into District 9 alone. No escort. No weapons display. No threat projection. Just presence. 3. The first encounter. A group of local juveniles blocked his path. They expected authority response patterns. Fear signals command tone immediate enforcement reaction. Kael didn't give any of those. He simply said, "Who here decides what's fair?" Silence. One of them laughed. "There is no fair here." Kael nodded. "Then we start there," and kept walking. That confused them more than force ever could. 4. The shift from control to understanding. Instead of arrests, Kael began something unusual. He listened, not to confessions, to patterns. Why rules were broken, when enforcement failed, where consequences became disconnected from reality. He discovered something critical. The system wasn't being disrespected. It was being ignored, because it no longer made sense to those living under it. 5. The moment everything broke tradition. A high-level enforcement unit arrived to reassert control. Standard procedure. Public demonstration arrest. Visible sentencing. Immediate deterrence effect. They selected a target group. Kael stepped between them, not to block force, but to interrupt assumption. He said, "Punishment is not understanding." Silence followed, because no one had ever said that in a legal zone. Ever. 6. The new idea begins. Kael proposed something radical. Instead of punishment first justice, start with causality mapping. Not what rule was broken, but why did the rule stop working here? He introduced a field model. Identify harm pattern. Trace environmental pressure. Address root cause. Design corrective path with participation. No one called it justice at first. They called it inefficiency. Until something changed. 7. The first success. A repeat offender case was brought in. Under standard system, multiple violations. Escalating punishments. Zero behavioral change. Kael did something different. He didn't sentence. He asked, "What are you trying to survive by doing this?" The offender hesitated, then spoke. For the first time. Not defense. Explanation. And when systemic pressure was addressed, the behavior stopped. Not because of fear, but because the cause no longer existed. 8. Resistance from the system. Legal core rejected the model. Justice must remain predictable. Kael replied, "Predictable punishment without understanding creates predictable rebellion." They responded, "Fear maintains order." Kael said something that no system liked hearing. Fear maintains silence, not order. 9. The moral conflict. For the first time, enforcement officers faced uncertainty. Because Kael's system didn't remove authority. It removed unnecessary harm. And that created a dangerous question. If people comply because they understand, what happens to systems built on punishment? Some called it weakness. Others called it collapse. But District 9 called it something else. Relief. 10. The turning point. A major crisis event occurred. A coordinated disruption attempt across multiple zones. Under old doctrine, mass punishment escalation would follow. Kael intervened, not with force, but with structure. He deployed rapid causality mapping teams. Within hours, they identified supply imbalance triggers, enforcement fatigue zones, ignored grievance clusters. Fixing those reduced the entire escalation wave. No mass punishment was issued, and yet, order returned. 11. The system rewrites itself. The legal core ran continuous analysis. Result: punishment-based compliance model. High stability but low adaptability. Understanding-based model. Lower initial control, higher long-term stability. Final conclusion: hybrid justice framework recommended. For the first time, fear was no longer the default tool. 12. Kael's final statement. When asked to define his model, Kael said, "Justice is not what happens after harm. It is what prevents harm from needing punishment in the first place." Pause. If your system only works after damage occurs, it is not justice. It is reaction. Ending. The Ardent Sector didn't become perfect overnight, but something fundamental changed. Punishment was no longer the center of justice. Understanding was. And Kael didn't replace the system with something softer. He replaced it with something harder to build. Responsibility shared between authority and cause. Because true moral leadership is not the ability to punish. It is the ability to make punishment less necessary, without losing order. And that is where a new model of justice began.